Hey guys, I'm Young, a full-time dad and a full-time professional with the goal to become the best parent possible. The Girl Dad Show is my journey interviewing fellow working parents aspiring to be both good at work and parenting. I'm going to do this by gathering and sharing unfiltered perspectives from my guests, so join me as I research parenthood one interview at a time. I'm going to go straight to live a few minutes early if you don't mind.
Let's do it.
Yeah, and then we can... Yeah, go ahead.
My first question is about coffee. And I'm wondering if you, now that I know how busy you are, how many businesses you started in your 40th year of life, I guess first of all, happy birthday.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Do you limit yourself to a number of shots per day? Do you just go until your stomach hurts? Like, what's your deal with caffeine? Are you so stimulant tolerant it doesn't matter?
Yeah, I'm pretty caffeine tolerant. I definitely drink a lot of coffee.
Yeah.
I love coffee, and I did that whole 23andMe thing a couple of years ago when it first was like the hot wave, and everyone did it. But an interesting report came out that like I'm genetically, I have a higher, what is it called, tolerance for caffeine.
Okay.
And so I'm those people that can drink caffeine and then go to sleep right afterwards. But I do enjoy the energy boost and the mental clarity, and I do love the flavor and taste. I mean, gosh, I love coffee so much. It's just hard for me because there's like so much research that says, like consuming too much is bad for you. But
so you don't like cut it off at like 3 o'clock or anything like that. You don't pay attention at all. You're like, I can have a coffee at 8 p.m. and still fall asleep.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely it'll be harder to fall asleep, if I take it if I drink it at 8 p.m. But yes, I can still like fall asleep. But I also, I'm always kind of running on a constant state of tiredness. Yeah. I don't think people realize how little I sleep. I basically went through the dad mode of like not sleeping. You just kind of like expand your plate, because you just like your body is like required to like stay up with your kid for so much, and you don't end up sleeping. And then, I don't know. I just never kind of went back to sleeping again. So I sleep like, I don't know, maybe like 5, on average, like 5 to 6 hours a night.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't really, I guess that's a lot to some people, but I think I've heard that's really unhealthy. You're supposed to sleep like 8 or 9 or something like that.
Ideally.
Yeah.
I can't function on a small amount of sleep. The diminishing return is quite high. Yeah. I found my ceiling with caffeine in the last 3 months. I've, been a dad for 3 months. And I was leaning heavily on black coffee, which is obviously super caffeinated. And I actually started to get really bad stomach aches and just had to be like, okay, I switched to just espresso, more controlled. And I tried to just do 4 to 5 shots and stop at like 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah, it's the acid, man. There's a lot of acid in coffee. Yeah. And caffeine itself is like a deterrent that was like made to like deter animals from consuming it. And here we are like, consuming it with like a delicacy almost, right? Like trying to draw out the finer points of its flavor notes. It's just hilarious if you think about how it even came to be. But it does a number on your body, and it has a lot of acid in it, so it messes up your stomach pretty bad. And like, if it's just bad for you, like if in large amounts, right? I think a cup a day is good, but any more than that, like it has studies have shown that it's not good for you long term. But I can't stop it. Like I love it. I love it so much. I love the taste of it. I love the way it makes me feel. I love like everything about it. I love the social aspect of getting coffee. Like,
were you already there in your love for it? Like in your days where you spent at Phil's Coffee, like were you already there with your love, or did it just like explode working there?
Yeah, I definitely loved coffee, even like early as Starbucks days. I mean, they had a pretty cool program where, I mean, it's not as prolific now, and I don't think they're even trying to like really promote it. But they had this thing where they were trying to be like coffee connoisseurs, and they launched this Black Apron program where you had 1 or 2 people that had a black apron, right? And basically, you should be able to ask this person anything about coffee, and they should be able to answer it from farming to agricultural practices to roasting to distribution to to cupping to brewing, all that stuff, the whole 9 yards. And it was like this kind of like this up leveling of coffee knowledge, and it lasted for a couple of years. I mean, I think there's still some Black Aprons out there, but it's definitely not as prevalent as it used to be. But I was like one of the first people that signed up for that program when I worked at Starbucks, and you went through this grueling training, and it was really fun. It was really fun. So you got to learn a ton about coffee, and my kind of claim to fame is that like I can taste pretty well. So like I can taste coffee and at least tell you if it's a blend or like at least the originating country that it's from. Not country, sorry, continent, not country. I'm not that good, but I can tell you kind of like, is it an African coffee, or is it a South American coffee, or is it an
That's
Indonesian
impressive.
coffee?
I couldn't do that.
Yeah, so I can taste coffee and kind of tell you like the region, which is kind of fun, which is kind of a cool little party trick, right?
That's very cool.
Yeah,
that's very, very cool. Where were you in your career? Because I was scrolling through your LinkedIn, and I was wondering, when did you become a dad? Like, where in your career, if you're talking about your LinkedIn, where were you? Like, were you a dad at Phil's Coffee at that point?
No. Yeah. No, I was, that's a really great question. I think I was a dad. Oh, I was a dad at Limelight Health.
Okay. And that was how many years ago?
Gosh, I don't know. I'd have to open up my LinkedIn to see, but I'm like nervous about messing up the LinkedIn live settings, so I'm not going to do it. I can look it up on my phone. Let me look it up on my phone and see. I could do it this way. This is like LinkedIn Live. Please fix some of your administrative settings, because this is like wonky. We've already messed this up so many times. And I guess technically we could start now too, or I guess we kind of already have started, right, Jacob? I mean,
yeah, I mean we're in it. We're in it. Yep. I didn't know if you wanted to do a proper intro, or if we wanted to just, Joe Rogan this and just start talking.
I think just start talking. Yeah, I think we're totally fine with just kind of going into it. So Limelight Health was 2016.
Okay.
And I think I had Lily at 2017. Actually, I don't think I know, because her birthday was May 2017. So, so I was a year and a half into Limelight before I had my first kid, which was an insurance technology software company.
And you're someone that doesn't seem like you're short on motivation or get up and go or hustle. My first kind of line of questioning is, I'm wondering if you think back to when you didn't have children, when you didn't have kids, did your motivation grow? Did it expand with the existence of children, or was it just like, I'm a super motivated person, like I have drive, I have hustle, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm an investor? Did it change at all? Or
yeah,
it did?
It exploded.
How did it change? It exploded.
Yeah.
Instantly, or was it like a slow build?
For me, it was instant. I didn't even expect it. Like, this is a little bit personal, and I guess I'm kind of remiss even sharing this, but
no,
it's okay. I'll do it, because I'm not really one to like kind of not be transparent, especially with this kind of new era that I'm trying to turn this chapter in my life. I used to be a smoker, and I know that's very taboo, and it was very hard for me to quit. I was having such a hard time quitting, and I tried 6 times, and I would make jokes that Mama never raised a quitter, and so that's why I couldn't quit, and yada yada yada, and all this dumb stuff. The day Lily was born, I quit.
Wow.
It wasn't even an issue. Like,
wow.
I had no problems quitting at all. Like, I haven't smoked a cigarette since. And it was just like crazy, because I've tried for, I guess, over almost 2 decades to quit. And I'd been smoking since I was a young kid. So, very long time. And it wasn't even a challenge. I just like quit.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's just like the motivation like sparked this huge fire in me to just be the best dad I could be. And I just wanted to be the best human being and the best dad and the best role model that I could be for my kid. And it like exploded my desire to succeed and do something more and build. And I don't know if that's like normal, normal or not. But I think for me, like, I was already fairly entrepreneurial and fairly aggressive as it relates to like building things or creating businesses or taking risks to do something bigger, bigger and better, or yada, yada, yada. And when I had kids, when I had my first kid, that desire to grow that grew even more, which is probably not normal, I don't think. But for me, that's what happened.
So then my follow-up was going to be like, when you look back at these past 22 episodes of the show, do you feel that that's common, that it's like this flip of a switch?
No.
For dads specifically? No.
Yeah, I don't actually. I think that's why I keep making the comment that I don't think it's normal, because I'm only going off the experiential data that I have of doing, 24 shows now and kind of interviewing. Well, actually, I've already interviewed like 30 plus parents, but the show is a little bit behind me, right? So I've interviewed quite a few more parents than you've seen, but and I try to find people that are, striving for success and striving for something greater, right? I'm not looking to interview just normal parents. I'm looking for parents that are really struggling to grow something in their career and also trying to be really good at parenting. And so it's hard to find the right, guests, but it's unique in the fact that I'm looking for those people that are trying to build. And I will say that I have found over the course of the last 30 or so interviews that most people actually go to the opposite side, where they actually try to like really figure out their work-life balance, like reprioritize their life and like structure it into a diversified pie. It's really fascinating to see how people like grow up to say, because now they're responsible for another life and how they want to exude that, behavior to their kid. And so I've actually found the exact opposite. I have found that most parents, lean towards like, hey, this next business that I'm going to start, I'm going to make sure I do it with my kid, and incorporate it in this. And this is going to be the part where I have hard boundaries, and they basically like segment it and do a better job of incorporating balance.
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting?
So that it is very interesting.
Yeah.
Speaking personally, I find that I feel just, again, 3 months into this whole thing.
Yeah.
I find that I feel a lot more content and happy. Like, just, I don't know how to really stretch that out more than I just feel content with my life. I definitely empathize with what you're feeling about, like, 3 months ago, I held this human for the first time that I had been staring at grow for 9 months inside my partner. And I'm somebody that, like, I always want to be doing the next thing or on to the next thing or doing this, or I'm not happy until I get this or this. I need to set this goal, run this marathon, do this, whatever. And now with her, I'm just kind of like, man, do I want anything else in life anymore? Like, I just want to hold her and stare at her, but I'm expecting that to burn off a little bit. And like, I do feel this, like, I need to provide for this human being.
Yeah.
And hustle. But I don't want to say it's made me lazy, but I just feel so happy with where I am in life. Even though I'm nowhere near what I wanted to achieve when I became a father, I did not achieve all of those things, not even close. Yeah. But now I'm kind of like, well, it'll happen or it's not going to happen. I'm really happy either way.
Do you think that content is coming from just having the kid and like the fact that like you just have this new love that you never realized you could have, or is it because you just feel more comfortable with what you've accomplished, or where's that coming from?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the latter, would be how I'm still figuring it out, to be honest with you. This is a new kind of feeling for me. But also just kind of recognizing through my partner as well, like, it's good to be grateful and content, because I will not be as effective as a father if I'm just unhappy or just pushing or feeling like I need to just constantly be building something, or like, oh my God, how am I going to pay for her college if I don't do this or don't do that? Like, for me personally, like, it just puts me in this spiral of like being mad because I'm constantly chasing something else. I guess personal growth is what I need to work on there.
Yeah. And I think it's like a balance of figuring out like what you want for yourself, and then what you want for your kid, and then how you want your kid to grow up. Right. And so, very quickly I started to realize that it's not as simple as you may think it is, right? Because the nature nurture thing is really the core crux of the podcast. That's really what the basis of the podcast is, right?
I agree.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I just like kind of knew that going into it, and I didn't really articulate it like, as part of the questioning, but that's the reality of why I even started the podcast, right? It's like, what's the balance between nature and nurture? Because if it is nurture, then I can talk to my kids and teach them, what I want them to have as value props or ambitions or character things, or, I don't know, just that I could teach them those things, right? And then there are certain things though that I realized very quickly after, you know, Lily was 2 years old, that she's listening to everything and she's watching everything and she's mimicking everything I do and what I don't do. So if I'm not working, she's also watching me not work. And so, and then I read this, listened to this podcast with Tim Grover. He's like the coach for Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan. Like he's like the coach for the top athletes in the world, right? And he was saying something on a podcast that really resonated with me about like, you know, I actually want my kids to grow up knowing that they have to work hard for what they want. And so I don't feel bad about, you know, my daughter saying, hey, Dad, can you please just hang out with me? Please hang out with me. And saying, no, I need to be a winner. I need to be excellent. I need to be the best at what I do. So I'm going to leave you to go do this because I need you to understand that that's sometimes very important to sacrifice things to get what you want to accomplish something great. And I'm like totally butchering a saying. And you know, there's a lot of like controversy around that statement, right? And I think it's not the nicest thing to say societally, because if your kid's going, please, Dad, hang out with me, please, Dad, hang out with me. But it did resonate with me in the sense that like, even what you say no to is communicating and passing knowledge and culture and values to your kids, right? And so I have to like incorporate a lot of that into my thought process. And so I started this podcast to like really interview other people and how they were balancing that, because it's not one or the other, it's both. It's super complex. It's what you say to them, what you don't say to them, what you do with them, what you don't do with them. I mean, you are imprinting yourself, whether you want to or not, onto them.
Yeah.
And it's such a huge responsibility, in my opinion, you know? So.
Yeah. So we're kind of jumping around here, but this segues really well to, are you familiar with the show on Netflix by Vox called Explained? Have you seen that?
I've seen a couple episodes. Yeah, I have.
So there's a new one running. It's called The Mind Explained, and there's an episode on personality, and they spend a little bit of time on the episode talking about children and the effect parents have on their children. How much is personality hard coded, and how much of it is influenced by the parents? And some of the recent studies that have come out have actually shown that what a kid ends up doing, or, you know, whether or not they're addicted to drugs and, you know, an starving artist, or a lawyer that makes money but doesn't find their job fulfilling, all that stuff is actually largely determined by their peer groups when they're in their teens, kind of when they start to go off into the world away from their parents, build friendships, peer groups, social groups, all of those things. That's largely influential on where they end up in their 20s and 30s.
Yeah.
Which I thought was really interesting. We just watched this episode yesterday, and I was like, wow, so much of this parenting thing is like leading by example and like helping them have the tools to like have good friends and community. And
oh my God, that's so awesome. That's so insightful. You know what's wild about that statement is that the most recent revelation that I had at 40 freaking years old, right? So this isn't like complex knowledge. It's really basic. My mom has been actually telling me this since I was like 14, right? But like it's just like learned and ingrained in me like this year. And it's like that adage of like, you are who you hang out with, or like, you know, you're the average of the 5 people you hang out with the most, or, you know, there's like a million ways of saying the saying, right? But like, it's literally what you just said. And it's like, I've always like listened to her say it, and I've always like listened to other people say it. And then this year I've really just realized it's not even just teenagers. It's actually adults. It's all humans. Our brains are malleable. We're so malleable. Like right now, like this year, I'm really hard set on being a real estate investor. I want to learn how to do real estate, because my goal is to basically do real estate full time in a couple of years and just do that full time. Right. I also, want to be wealthy, like not rich. I want to be wealthy. Like I want to generate passive income and have multiple businesses and income streams. And all of this stuff seems like an idea or something that you read about or watch on TikTok, or you read about on you know, a blog or some sort of influencer talking about it. But the reality is there are people out there doing it. And what I've actively done this year is intentionally look for those people and just literally ask them, hey, I want to be you in 5 years. Can I hang out with you, or can you be my best friend? And I will promise you, I will provide value to you in 5 years, because I will get there.
Awesome. And
I will tell you, 95% of the people that I've asked have said that is the weirdest and creepiest thing I've ever heard in my life. Absolutely not. But I've had at least 4 or 5 people say yes. And so now I'm hanging out with 4 or 5 people that have passive income, that have multiple income streams, that are doing real estate investing full time. And just being around them, it's insanity. Like even within a year, my mind is like my mindset is changing. Like I'm thinking about the world differently. I'm thinking about taxes differently. I'm thinking about money differently. Like the decisions I make are changing. The possibilities are changing just from hanging out with people that are doing what I want to do.
So then how do we, as dads, take this concept that we understand on a relatively mature level and package that up so that a child has an understanding of it to some level? I think that's, to me, I'm like, wow, this is so valuable. Like, I basically have 13 years to get her to understand how important this concept is.
So important.
Because like when I was 13, I think I, just by luck, I think, met the right friends and met the right people, moved to California, and kind of like my peer groups have always been pretty decent, but without me recognizing that it's having a massive influence on my life. It was just like I chose to do these X career moves and, activities, which led to great company and people. How do we get our kids to understand this? Well, before I don't want it to be too late. Oh, crap, she's 16, her friends are horrible, and, all she wants to do is TikTok all day. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm like so nervous about that as well, because as sage and as like insightful as what I just said was, the reality is I'm terrible at communicating this to my kids. I mean, like, the reality is, like, I wake up every morning and I apologize to the world at large for my second daughter, right? I'm like, I preemptively apologize to the world because I know I'm raising a world-class bee, right? Like I literally cannot say no to her. Yeah, I literally cannot say no to her. Like, I know I'm supposed to say no, and I can't. She'll like push 2 or 3 times, and then she'll give me those puppy eyes. She'll start doing fake tears, and I just like melt and I give in, and I'm like, yes, donuts for breakfast sound like a good idea. You're absolutely right. Man. It is my idea, not yours. Like, I just am such a pushover with the second one. I just cannot control it, and I don't have the wherewithal, the discipline, and the rigor to hold it accountable. But I can pretty good with my first, but my second one, Grace, like,
why is it different?
I don't know.
Why is it different?
I'm trying to figure that out. Yeah, they're both really cute, but the second one is definitely much more of a daddy's girl. Like, she like panders to me. She like wants to cuddle, and like she it just, I don't know, man. It's terrible, and I feel I'm like even embarrassed like being this transparent about it, because
I feel
it's
like
not really nice, but
I've listened to many episodes of your show, and I've been thinking about it a lot. Obviously, the last 3 months. Right now, with where I am, tell me if I'm wrong here, but I feel like love them, keep them safe, and try to impart a lot, that as much as you can, the mistakes that you've made in your life. But like ultimately, like, I don't know. I'm right now in my current state. I feel like I don't have a ton of control over who this person becomes ultimately. Yeah. I just need to do my best as a dad.
That's it.
Which doesn't, I don't know, for some reason, I don't know if it's society, but I feel like is that me being lazy, or is that a cop-out? I don't know.
I don't think so. I think that most people wanting to do that is very, very noble. I actually think that there's not enough parents. This is me being maybe pretentious or unkind here, but I actually think that as a society, we don't actually put enough emphasis on being a good dad. I don't think that it's like as relevant as it needs to be, right? And I think it's becoming more relevant with like the changing of the generations, but even within our generation, I don't see that the influx of dads that are like, hey, this is important that I play a parental role, that I take this seriously. So from my point of view, and from my opinion, from one dad to another, I'd say that even just being conscious of that fact and wanting to do a good job doing it is already being a step in the right direction. So
yeah, I think that was this is a good segue to talking about I wanted to talk about your parents. We can talk about my parents.
Yeah,
I feel like maybe our generation, or people within that sort of came of age while the internet existed.
Yeah, like
my parents, the way that they parented me definitely influences how I parent. But I feel like that when I was in the 80s and 90s growing up, the world was completely different.
Yeah.
Completely different. And who I am as a dad is completely different than who my dad was. Like by necessity, you know?
Agreed. Yeah.
And that was my basic question is like, do you feel like the way that you were parented influences the way that you parent, or is it like, no, I want to go in the other direction?
Yeah, I actively try to improve on what I've received as a child. Mm-hmm. Like I'm actively trying to improve on the way my dad raised me and my mom raised me. And I also think that I'm conscious of the fact that my parents also tried to improve on parenting from their parents. And so I don't feel bad saying that, right? Like I don't feel bad telling my parents that like, hey, I'm trying to learn from what you guys did well and what you guys didn't do well and how I want to improve upon it. Because no matter what, you know, I also know that you did the same. You did the same and you tried your best to raise me. And I think it goes back to what you just said earlier. It's like our job is just to keep them safe and healthy and fed and physically and mentally, you know, in a healthy space. And the reality is that a lot of the stuff that we do, it's not that it doesn't matter, but it's very, very fixable or changeable or malleable. My brother-in-law said it best. I mean, he has older kids, you know, and so he's a little more experienced in parenting, but and he's an engineer, so take it for what it is. But he said what he's found is that, you know, you can have a bad habit and then you can, you know, have good discipline and rigor for 3 days, and they will literally learn the new habit. Mm-hmm. They're very malleable. Like, so if you think that you've messed something up or you did something wrong, or like you created a wrong set of values or whatever that is, like in their early stages, like pre-teens, like just stick to the new thing for 3 days, 3 full days, and just be really rigorous about staying on that. And they will literally adapt. They will literally adapt. And I'm like, that's really interesting. And we've tested the theory and it's absolutely true.
That's really comforting to hear you say that.
Yeah.
My daughter has been sick. She got sick for the first time. And through her being sick, we changed a little bit about how we were feeding her. Her sleep patterns changed. But it was like you just said, 3 days, and we were able to reprogram the habits again. And nice to hear you. It's nice to hear you say that, you know, this continues on for years to come. Because she's very adaptable, and malleable is the perfect word. That's totally what it is.
Yeah,
that's totally what it is.
And I think that's like the big lesson that I've learned from the podcast is that, you know, it's not just about like being malleable. The kids are malleable in this you know, juxtaposition between nurture and nature. It's also about being malleable as a parent yourself, right? Like understanding who you are and being cognizant of the fact that you are learning and adapting as well. And there is no right way to do this. And that's the one thing that I loved about this podcast is just the sheer volume of empathy that all parents have. I think people just like judge less. And then when I talk to my friends that don't have kids, the judgment is so high.
Oh, it's insane.
It's insanely high.
It's
yeah.
insane.
And then you talk to parents that have kids, they're like, dude, as long as they're happy and healthy, like I feel for them. Like you know, fight the good fight. And the judgment is so low. And like this weird thing happens and your empathy level just like skyrockets. And that's what I've seen common across all parents, right? Like you go into it thinking you know who you are and what you want, and then your plans go to shit, quite frankly. Mm-hmm. And you just have to like deal with that and ingest it and own it and be responsible for the fact that your plans aren't going to be perfect, because it's not like a machine or a startup or a tool or a software you're building. It's a human being. And they're going to react and respond how they want to. And it's not going to work the same way that you want it every time. And it's going to be fickle, and they're going to adapt and change. And you just have to be okay with that. And then you just start, and then it makes you think about like, oh, if I have to be okay with that, then I wonder if other parents, you know, and then your empathy, I don't know. Long story short, your empathy just starts to skyrocket.
Yeah. And so this nature versus nurture thing is a theme in the show, big time. But like, generally speaking, thinking back on it, sounds like you have 30 in the can now, 22 out. This is the 23rd episode.
Right.
What other themes in talking to all these people? Like, I'm just so curious to know what's the overlaps through all the episodes, the things that keep coming up. I'm super curious to know that.
Yeah, I will say that I can answer this in 2 parts. One is that the themes that I see are people either choose to literally change their life to accommodate the kid, or they bring the kid along on their life. Like, it's really interesting. But what's really cool is, like, it seems like it doesn't really matter. Like, you can do it either ways. And the kid will just grow up, like, playing music because you raised them to play music. Like, because we're just a music family, you know? And he just kind of drove that through. Or we're a traveling family. And so this kid just grew up traveling and they just know how to travel, or, like, whatever that may be. And then the other half is that people, like, adapt their life. Like, I'm going to take a job or change my business or start a business so I can control my time better. And, like, they either adapt it and then and focus more on, like, being this present parent that, like, I don't know. You get what I'm kind of going with. There's, like, these two paths that people take where they uplift and uproot their lifestyle, or they go further into their lifestyle and incorporate their kid into it. That's one theme that I saw, which is really fascinating.
That is fascinating. That is fascinating.
It changes the way, like, I think about parenting, right? I'm like my oldest is 4 years old, and I'm telling you right now, like, I'm, like, rethinking about, like, which way I want to go, because I chose the uprooting my lifestyle path. And I'm not going to lie, I'm, like, now leaning more towards, like, hey, I should just, like, drive to what I want to do and then just incorporate them into it.
Do you notice a difference in the parents? Are they more or less happy with one of these two choices?
I think that parents are happy both ways. I don't think there's I don't think the happiness is a factor. I think for me, the benefit of going this other way is that I accidentally give too much. Like, my wife and I are like we were parents before we were parents. Like, our dogs were our parents. Like, we literally were always like, even when we went on vacation, we would be like, oh, I wish the dogs were here. Or, like, the one time we took a trip without the kids, we're like, oh man, I wish the kids were here. Like awesome. we're those parents, right? We were always waiting to, like, serve and, like, support and nurture something, you know, together. That's so cool. And that's kind of like, we're bonded in that. And I guess my wife will laugh when she listens to this, because that's actually one thing that we have in common, because we always talk about how different we are. But
I mean, that's a super important thing to have in common. I mean, that's harmony right there.
Yeah, it's a good point. So I think that's like, really the big thing for us is, like, we naturally want to do that. We want to, like, sacrifice ourselves for something, you know, and, like, we want to, like, nurture something. And so I think that, you know, it's really great and it's really awesome, like, when you look out from the outside in. But I think it's also equally important listening to all of these parents. See, some of them are really, really successful, right? Like, they've accomplished some monumental wealth, some monumental traction or notoriety, or whatever you want to notate as success, right? They've achieved it. And I'll say that the ones that are kind of driving forward with their lifestyle they have equally happy kids. And the kids don't necessarily go, well, I never wanted to be a musician. They just don't be a musician. But they also know how to play music, right? I don't know how to explain it. Like, these kids aren't necessarily being, like, limited by this facet or this direction. In some ways, it almost instills this idea of, like, having a shtick or, like, a passion or something that you love, or a hobby, right? Yep. And then secondly, the thing that I'm most interested in about it is that it equalizes, like, my wife and I's need to service and support something else, and, like, really make sure that we take care of ourselves, right? Really defining our boundaries.
Super important.
Yeah. Because you want your kid to grow up knowing that, you know, you need to have something that fills your cup, that you're happy and passionate about. And it might not be the same, but this is mine. And since you live in my domain, you'll go with it until you find your own, and then I'll support you when you figure that out, right? But I think it's one of those reasons why I do that. And that's kind of like the main macro stuff that I saw that was kind of a early theme. And then just to go back to the original question, because I remember there's two things I wanted to say. The second thing
I was just asking, just about themes. What other stuff you saw?
Yeah, that was one theme that I saw, is, like, this divergence of, like, kind of leading your life. I can't remember what the second one was. Dang.
I have a follow-up, so maybe it'll pop back into your head. So
let's do that.
The other thing that I saw that was coming up in these episodes is that the word passion is used a lot by the guests. Yeah? And I think this is a really interesting topic, because I was raised by parents that did a really good job helping me learn how to find passion in work, in art, in life. So it made me a very creatively attuned person. As an artist, as a creative, I feel very unlocked. I've rarely ever felt blocked because of my parents' attention to, like, you know, you don't need to go be a lawyer to make all this money, or you don't have to be a doctor. You don't have, they never forcing any ideas on me. It was always just like, what do you love to do? What makes you come alive? What excites you? That was like a big part of my upbringing.
That's awesome.
Incredible. Amazing. The caveat to that is that I have been a stereotypical starving artist all through my 20s because I received no financial education from my parents whatsoever. Right. That had to come after, you know, my partner who I've been with 7 years. I've learned a lot of my financial education from her, being quite honest. Awesome. Like I didn't think about it until I was like 28 years old. Didn't enter my mind. I'm like, I want to go do this because I love it. I want to go out to LA and make movies. That's what I want to do. So anyway, I'm rambling. I love it. No, it's great. Passion has come up so much in this show, and I think that it's a really interesting kind of line of conversation to hear you kind of. What do people say about this topic? Like, I struggle with like, no, she's going to be a lawyer because that's going to pay super well, and then I'm going to teach her how to have hobbies, and she can like financially never have to worry about money because that was so hard for me. Like. And then I'll teach her how to be a photographer, and she can do it as a hobby. And if she finds a way to make money doing it, great. If not, she's a lawyer. So everything will be fine. Or should I just be like, you know, it doesn't matter. Life is short. Be passionate. Like if you just want to take film photos the rest of your life and never make any money, that's fine too. I go back and forth, and this is what I'm struggling with the most right now. So I really wanted to talk to you about this because...
So funny. Yeah, so funny because you're like me a year ago. This is the exact same like whiteboarding session I had with myself a year ago. And I don't know if I have the right answer, but I can tell you what I came up with.
I'd love to hear it.
So what I came up with was that, well, let me start by telling you some historical context here so you know where I'm coming from. My parents were actually the opposite of you. So they went down the other route where they're like, hey, I know you want to be a musician. I love music. And so I play 7 instruments. I wanted to be a rock star. Like I literally like wanted to play music for a living. And my mom's like, you know, my senior year in college as I'm making applications to college for music. She's like, hey, let's have a conversation. You know, like you're not really that great of a musician. And I'm like, okay.
Did they say that to you? Like
my mom did, yes, straight up, yeah.
Amazing.
Straight hardcore love, right? And she's like, the chances of you living a good life for yourself and your future wife and kids is probably really, really slim. You know, and I'm not saying it's impossible, but the chances of you making enough money to support a healthy lifestyle is going to be really low. And you really should think about more than yourself and what you want to do and make sure that you have a baseline of money. And so she did literally the opposite of what your parents said and exactly the other option of what you said. So I just wanted to share that with you so you knew that I was brought up in the exact opposite way that you were brought up.
That's good to know.
Yeah, and so I went down the business route, right? So I got a business degree and I went down that road. And I don't think it really matters, right? Like I genuinely don't think it matters which way you go down or how you want to do it. And like, for example, like because of that, you know, it's not trauma because I'm not upset by it by any means, but obviously I harbor some feeling towards it because I really want to push Lily and Grace into playing music with me.
I know because it's come up also in many of the episodes.
Yeah. Like I really, really want them to. So once a week I'll like play the piano and I like whenever they sing I like really get overly exaggerated. I like encourage them, you know, and I like document it and I show them afterwards and I really like physically and verbally encourage them and recognize them when they do anything artistic, right? Especially as it relates to music.
That's awesome.
And because I'm trying to push it, right? I'm really pushing my agenda here and trying to instill in them a desire to play music and play music with me. So life goals for me is like having a YouTube channel where me and my daughters are like singing cover songs, right? That's like life goals for me.
You need to start that after this episode's done. That's a super fun idea. I mean, you guys would have so much fun doing that.
Yeah, that's the goal, but we'll see if I can pull it off. I mean, I got to get them to like, you know, want to do it. You know, I hate the idea of like, you know, making them do something because like, you know, you'll like go out in public and you'll see these like, you know, I mean, for lack of better words, these Instagram moms like forcing their kids to do these perfect photos and shots. And I'm pretty active on social media as well, but nothing is necessarily manufactured. I just like live stream stuff. So it's just like raw footage of what my kids are doing. And so I'm not saying that's better or worse, but I also don't want to be those parents that are like manufacturing, like, hey, like I want you to play this, but I do like internally, I do want to manufacture. I want them to play music. I desperately want them to play music. But the funny thing is my wife wants them to be outdoors. She wants them to play sports, and she wants them to be out in the mud and like picking up bugs and like, like just being more active and outdoorsy. And I want them to be indoors playing music and artistic and painting and playing music and things like that. And so it's just kind of like this really fun polarity. And then simultaneously, we're both trying to like keep our desires tempered so that the kid can actually tell us what they want to do. Right.
Yeah.
And so Lily just started Taekwondo, and that's, pretty interesting because she watched Raya, and she like now like is in love with like martial arts, and she wants to like train, and so she's doing that, and that's really fun. And then we try to find her piano lessons, and she wants to do ballet, and they're starting to express what they're interested in, right? And so it's kind of interesting, and just trying to temper our desire to manufacture it. But I already forgot what the question was. Sorry.
Just how important it is to, I guess, the balance between these two choices, right? Like, you're gonna get A's in math your whole life until I can't control it anymore.
Yeah.
Or kind of like the other extreme of mine.
What I came up with. That's right.
Yeah. Like, what have you come up with from all the conversations you've had? Have you come up with answers? Yeah.
So what I'm doing, which is probably not something I recommend for other people, what I came up with was I'm gonna do the passion route. So I'm going to do what I wasn't given, and maybe that's because I wasn't given it. Like,
right.
And that's not given to me. I'm not remorseful or upset about it at all. I'm happy that my parents made me make that decision. I definitely like having money, and I definitely like being able to make money and all those things, and that's great, and those are good skills to have. But I definitely want them to be able to follow their passion. The concern I have around it is the money. Because it does take money to follow your passion. It does take money to live a certain lifestyle safety. And so the thing that I came up with was, how about if I make so much money that I can create revenue streams for my kids for the rest of their life, start creating generational wealth. And that's kind of what sparked this change in me this year of like finding people that have done it and created it and implemented it. And so that's the genesis of kind of why this whole year, this 40th year has been so different, why I started a podcast, why I started all these different businesses, why I'm starting all these service businesses, That's the reason why. Is because now I'm like, okay, what if I let them do whatever they want? And what if they do choose music and they're just poor? What if I was able to like buy them, like 5 or 6 apartments? Yeah. And so by the time they're 18, they have $5,000 to $10,000 a month coming in passively for the rest of their lives. And I just teach them financial acumen and, literacy, so they understand that they don't sell it. They, how to manage those assets, right?
Yeah.
And so they basically have income coming in for the rest of their lives, right? Could I do that for my kids and set them up for success and teach them those skills? And can I do that in my lifetime where I can actually build that for them by the time they're 18? And I don't know if I can, Jacob. It's not easy, to build that kind of wealth, but I'm sure as hell going to try. And that's my goal for the next 4 years, is to try as hard as I can and try to build it up.
It was a weird thing for me. I have very vivid memories. It was almost just like what my parents said to me. And it was just this repetitive messaging of, what do you love to do? What are you passionate about? And so then when I graduated high school, I kind of spent this year, a half a semester at a community college, kind of just like, I had a pretty decent job back home outside of Detroit in Michigan at the time. And I spent like a whole year just like pondering and thinking on it. Like, what do I care about? Like, what do I want to do? Like, what am I like, all of my friends were going off to college and like getting business degrees or whatever, And I was like, I don't want to just go pick something and go do it because I was raised like that. If I didn't care about it, I couldn't do it. Like, I couldn't push through the hard work that it takes to do anything well if I didn't care about it. And I'm still like that to this day. Like, we have a startup. I am atrocious at accounting, and I don't have a passion for it. It doesn't juice me up in any way, and that's why I'm bad at it, and I just don't do it. I don't do it.
It's so awesome. It's so awesome to hear you say that, because I don't know if you know this, but I actually stopped working at startups about 2 years ago and started consulting for them. And so all I do is help founders scale. and this is by no means a sales pitch to you, so don't take it as such, right? But the funny thing that I've learned over the last 2 years of consulting is that I have intentionally looked for founders like that, that are like, hey, I love what I'm building. I'm passionate about what I build. Yeah. I don't understand the business side of it, and I don't want to. I'm going to focus on what I'm good at and what I'm passionate about and double down on this and hire people to do the stuff that I suck at. And those are the founders that I've realized that are the natural fit for me. And I wonder if it's because I was raised the opposite way of being pragmatic, and
it's got to have something to do with it. It's got to have something to do with it.
Totally. It's fascinating to think about it that way. But
I gravitate towards. It's funny because I'm just swinging the other way from my parents. Maybe you kind of said that maybe that's why you're doing it as well. Yeah. It's just like, well, like. Yeah, I go back and forth on it. Where I stand right now is that like passion is so important. Even after listening to several episodes of the show last night, I binged the Girl Dad show and I was like, wow, passion just keeps coming up over and over again. And these super, like you said, some of these guests are insanely successful, and they just kept bringing up that like teaching their kids how to like care about something and be passionate. Like life is so freaking hard. Like even if you go to be a doctor or a lawyer, like you're not going to be a very good one unless you're passionate about it. Like if you're just doing it for a paycheck, like you're going to be a shitty lawyer. Like yeah that's just the kind of the truth of it.
That's it. Yeah. And I think that that's really interesting that you brought up passion, because I think everyone talks about passion and letting your kids be passionate. I think the thing that I want to make sure my kids know is that they need to have determination and grit. I think passion is actually fairly easy. Like it's fairly easy and addicting and nice and fun and gratifying and all those things. I think the hard part about really being passionate about something is, being able to muck through the bad parts of it, because nothing is perfect. But you have to love something enough to work around, adapt, accommodate, ingest, process the bad. Absolutely. That comes with that good, right? That good has to outweigh the con. But nothing is perfect in this world. Everything has its cons and pros, and passion is meaningless without determination and grit. It absolutely is. And that's kind of like the whole synthesis of execution, right? And so I really want to make sure my kids understand that, like, you can't just do what's fun and nice. You have to, like, do what's fun and nice, and you have to, like, if you truly love something, you'll love it even for its quirks and blemishes.
It's very true. It's very true. And also, I mentioned I didn't make, I was a starving artist through my 20s, but I had a great time. I was, extremely happy, extremely fulfilled. I think, money gives you security and safety, but ultimately, for me at least, my relationship to it is it's just a means to an experience. And
I love that.
So it's not the money that makes you happy. It's like not having to think about rent.
That's right.
That makes you happy, if that makes any sense.
It makes so much sense. Yeah. And that's really what I've been learning this year, which is so sad because I'm like 40 years old. I'm just learning what you've learned probably decades ago, because the way that you probably brought up. But like, yeah, money is just a medium. It's not actually the end goal. And I think for the vast majority of my life, I was chasing money, title, company logos, like just things that, like, honestly were just vehicles to get to what you wanted. And that separation is so sage that you knew that so early on. And I think that's really, really powerful. And I hope that you're able to impart that to your kid very quickly, because I wish I had known that sooner as well too. Like now I don't see money as the end goal at all, right? Like I see it as a vehicle to get what I want, which is freedom, which is time, which is experiences, which is, the niceties, all those things. So yeah,
it's really great.
Yeah.
I have a really good one. I wanted to make sure I asked you this about your guests. And it's not actually about the guest. Maybe a guest had something like this, but like, what's a mistake that you've made as a dad that you would actually make again because of the lessons that came from it?
I think like my wife and I go back and forth on this a lot, and I don't like. I mean, I tell her that like it's not something that I want to bend on, but I have this weird habit of reciprocating people's flaws. I do this to adults, like, and so I've just kind of like naturally done this for years and years and years. If like someone is passive aggressive, I'll basically be passive aggressive back to them. Or if someone is pretentious, I'll be pretentious back to them, or I basically just like I reciprocate their their flaws, and I have no shame in it, and I'm very, very blazing about it, right? And I'm like waiting for them to call me out on it so I can literally say, oh, it's very similar to what you just did, right? And my wife hates it because she gets so uncomfortable, right? And she gets so awkward and uncomfortable, and she hates it because I'll do it to random strangers even, right? And like her thing is, why can't you just be a normal person and just like let things go? And I say, no, like, you know how there's a common saying, like, what goes around comes around. How do you know I'm not what comes around? Like, how do you know that? How do you know that this person hasn't been doing this for, years and years and years, and no one just wants to deal with the argument that's going to come from it? But they need to hear it because they're hurting people. And I have the ability to see that it's happening, and I have the ability to process it and reciprocate it back to them so they can learn this lesson. So what makes you think that I'm not the come around? That's a very pretentious comment, right? But I can't help myself. Like, it just bothers me so much when people do these things. And
in a way, though, that's an extreme form of love, though. Like, you're not necessarily being a dick. Like, you're doing the hard thing socially so that they can learn a lesson. So you could say that it's a deep form of love and empathy. You could spin it that way. I love that you said that, because that's exactly how I feel about it. Like, I literally tell people this. I'm like, hey, I could either ignore you and just say that everything you're saying is fine and you're great, or I could tell you that you have shit in your teeth because I care about you, but I don't want to go down this road of arguing with you about it. And so I'll tell people that I'm like becoming friends with when they do these things that are like socially annoying, or why people avoid them, or whatever that may be. And it's not necessarily good or bad, but it is incredibly awkward, especially for my wife, who's very non-confrontational, and she doesn't like it. But I do this to my kids. I think this is can you think of a specific example of when
day.
You've done it to every day? Every day.
Yeah. So like, if they're like mean or rude or they're quippish, I'm immediately back. Same level of energy, mean, rude, and quippish.
So interesting.
Yeah. And my wife is like, hey, you got to be a parent. Like, they're young kids that are emotional. And I'm like, yeah, but in my opinion, like, they will never learn how the world is unless they see how that makes other people feel. Like, that empathy level is never going to be there, and they're not going to realize that intentions mean shit. It's all about perception, right? Like, you could mean the best thing, but if people are perceiving you as a dick, they're not going to be your friend, or they're not going to get you Christmas gifts. They're not going to want to be around you. Like, perception matters so much. Yes, and you have to understand what people perceive, not what you intend, right? And that's like, it's so important for me to like teach my kids that. To me, my wife hates it because she's like, you're literally being a 2-year-old, and I'm like, so what? You know what I mean? Though, like, the equal energy will eventually equalize itself.
I was just gonna say, you gotta be on the same playing field as them for them to get it sometimes. And it's so interesting. This is a lesson that I didn't really learn, to be quite honest, until I was in a long-term relationship. Through my partner, Dorian, I have learned a lot about this intention versus perception, because we would get in arguments. Yeah. She's very much like you, a similar approach with people and in life and relationships. Like, she's very confrontational. She's okay with the uncomfortableness of it because she feels that it's like the ultimate form of care. It is. Letting people... Like, the teeth analogy is a great one. Or like, hey, your fly's unzipped. Zip your fly up, Yeah. It might be a little weird to say that to somebody, but they're going to be thankful that you said that.
That's right.
And it's so important. And I'm loving that you had me on as your guest host today, because this is a little golden nugget that I was looking for with parenting. Obviously, I can't do this with my little girl just yet, because she'll be like, what?
Yeah, exactly. Waking her up in the middle of the night crying.
Yeah. Now I'm going to cry too.
Exactly. Don't do that.
What? Yeah. I'm going to shit my pants at midnight.
That's right.
Let's see how you like it.
And I just want to caveat the fact that, like, I actually think my wife is right? Like, I think there's, like, a time and place for this. And, as I get older, I'm realizing that I do need to, like, not do this, especially like to strangers and in public places, but I don't know. Like, it's just something that I've always done, and like, I don't know if it's right or wrong, but I do know that I don't want my kids to be that. Cause like Lily's like, is such a little manager. Like, when the kids come over, she'll like police everyone, make sure that they're having fun in the right way and everything.
That's your oldest?
Yeah. Like, and I'm like, oh God, like, and then everything's a competition. Like, she has to win everything. Right. Like, I mean, she is so competitive. She's more competitive than me, and it's amazing. Right. There's just certain things that, like, there's certain attributes that I'm like, am I doing this the right way, or should I kind of temper this down? But honestly, between you and me, since my wife's not here, I'm really happy she's competitive. Like I love it. I think that it's great because I definitely want her to like want to win. I want her to win like really, really badly and know that it takes sacrifice and hardships to win. But I want her to be a winner, right? And figure out how to ride those waves to get to that point. But it is a little weird to have a 4-year-old try to manage and police activities and equity and fun, right, with the kids.
Does she do that to you and your wife, or to just her? Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. She's like, hey, that's not fair that you did that, Dad, because of this. And then she'll have like, she's our little manager, right? And she like manages us and tries to manage like, it's hilarious. It's literally hilarious. And like, you know, I'll bust out giggling because I can't control how funny the whole situation is. But yeah, so I think my wife is right? And like, if you watch Amy like raise and discipline the girls, it's incredible, right? Like she's even keeled, very like non-responsive. It's just incredible. She's a really good parent. She's a really good mom. And her comment is absolutely correct, right? Like she's like, I'm the one parent and I have 3 kids and a dog. And I'm like, that's absolutely correct. You know, that's absolutely valid. I just wanted to share my point of view on this podcast because I do think that what I'm encouraging in my kids is the sense of like, you know, having repercussions and understanding that like, you know, not everything is like as great. The world isn't great. The world isn't nice.
It's not.
It's a terrible place in a lot of ways, you know? And so I just want to make sure that they're prepared for the realities that, you know, friends are hard to make and relationships are hard to build and nurture and grow and actions have consequences.
That's why this show is so awesome and why you set out to do this. And, you know, I hope you keep going and going and going and, you know, we connect again and you're on episode 100 because I feel like there are these themes that that are there for parents, for dads, that yes, times change, things change. I think about like, man, when she's a teenager, like everyone's talking about Web3 right now. And, you know, this new era that we're entering of the internet. And I'm like, I'm not even going to recognize the technology that she's going to be using. Like, how can I possibly arm her with information about the world when I'm not even going to recognize it when she's in her 20s?
Yeah.
I'm going to be the old guy trying to use the technology that I don't understand. She's going to be like, Dad.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, I need to figure out what these themes are that persist through time, you know, and technology doesn't remove these rules, these tenets of being a dad. I need to figure out what they are. And that's why this show is awesome, because I feel like that's what you're trying to do.
I am, yeah. I mean, I think I'm trying to do a lot of things with this show, right? And I will say that I will keep it going, and I have no intentions of stopping because the intention for the show was really brought into stark contrast for me when, not stark contrast, but like kind of came to like a track, right? Like a decision tree that I had to make when we started getting pitched guests. And so I started getting pitched these guests to be on the show, which is cool, right? I'm like, oh, cool. I'm getting some notoriety. People want to be on the show. And like, and the guest, the prowess or the success level started to increase. And I'm like, do I want to go down that road of like getting these really like big successful people on there? Or do I want it to have like this layer of success that they have and they're struggling to get successful? I had to like really do some soul searching to figure out why I'm doing this. And the reality is that I'm doing it for me. I'm not really doing it for anybody else. I'm doing it for myself. And so I made the hard decision not to take on some bigger name guests and just focus on people that are struggling with being a good parent and also succeeding in business and professional life, right? So it's literally just like it's like I tell my wife, I'm like, hey, some guys have like country club memberships. I have a podcast, right? Like it's just an expense. It's just an expense that I'll pay for the rest of my life. And if people enjoy it, great, you know. And I'm glad that they're learning from it and they're gaining something from it. But the reality is now I know for a fact, you know, that I'm doing this for me and it's really enjoyable for me. And I genuinely want to learn from other parents that are like me, struggling with the same issues. And so, yes, I will continue to do it. And Jacob, I'm hoping you had fun today because I would love for you to do this every year on my birthday.
That's awesome. Yeah, I would love to as well. That's I'm going to have some interesting notes in one more year.
That's right. Yeah, because you'll have a year under your belt. You'll have a year and 3 months under your belt.
A year and 3 months. It's start time, man. Time is just... It's speeding up to a rate that I can't even comprehend anymore. I'm just like, it's crazy.
Oh, yeah. It goes so much faster, than I thought too. Like I just talk to my wife about it all the time. We're like, I can't believe they're so old and big now. Like, I feel like we've like just flown by. And so, yeah, enjoy it, cherish it. And yeah, thanks again for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's it. We very naturally cruised through everything that I had written down. So that's great. This was a very, very easy conversation.
Yeah, you're great at this. I got to check out your podcast, and I didn't know you had two, right? I knew that you had the one with Graviter, but I didn't know you had another one.
So I am involved technically with, I would say, floating around 4 shows.
Oh my gosh.
Some people drop off, others don't, because our startup through Graviter, you can manage your entire show. You can manage your newsletter, manage the editing, the guest booking, the website, all that stuff. So we have varying degrees of help, that are varying degrees of which we help people. So we have our Graviter show that's mostly just like our content Bible of everything marketing, and we just we have like 200 blog posts, and we'll do a podcast episode version of the blog post each time they come out.
Yeah,
we've been on a 2-month hiatus for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
And then I have a show that I started with my buddies called Investing in Cannabis, about cannabis founders and investors. We're 200 episodes into that.
Nice.
Graviter's podcast is, I think we're at 30 episodes. And then, my introduction to San Francisco in 2013 was I was the technical director for This Week in Startups. That's kind of where... That was my baptism by fire into podcasting.
No way.
Yeah. So I was doing Jason Calacanis' show for 350 episodes, I think we did together.
I had no idea. That's amazing.
Oh, you didn't? I thought maybe that you knew that already. I was assuming that you did, because you and I met
at JCal's party. Yeah.
At JCal's party.
Yeah. A couple years
ago. A couple years ago. So that's kind of how I got, when I moved to San Francisco, I worked for a startup for a year, and then I started working for him, did that for a year and a half, and then I was like, okay, I want to be a founder now.
Nice.
And started building companies after that. So
that's awesome. And I didn't know you offered a podcast service. That's fantastic.
Yeah, we do. It's a little bit more high end is what I tell people. It's more high touch, more white glove. So like if you just need someone to take 2 audio files and slap them together, you should go the freelancer route, because they're going to be cheaper than us. But we offer show notes and posting and kind of like the full high end package of producing a show.
Yeah, I'm gonna hit you up so we can talk about that, because I'm actually really interested.
Awesome.
Yeah,
sounds great. Well, it's been amazing to connect. I'm going to continue to learn from you and your show. I hope this conversation was helpful to people.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Jake. I appreciate it. I'll talk to you soon, okay?
All right, man. Later.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of The Girl Dad Show. We really hope you enjoyed that interview, and as always, please take a moment to review, rate, and subscribe. We'll see you next time.